In the beginning, there was VGC. Everyone was happy, people were competing in their favorite monster fighting video game, and then COVID happened. The only way for VGC to survive was that of the Players' Cup. So Players' Cup 1 was introduced. Our hero story, in the case of our hero, it's me, Colin. Our hero story begins in Players' Cup 1. He was able to qualify, but due to messing up errors on Pokemon.com, he was not able to compete. Hardened by this defeat, he made sure to email Pokemon.com support so that he could play in Players' Cup 2. After qualifying for Players' Cup 2, our hero was confident. He was ready to go, and he got hit with the fat 0-2. After failing so miserably, I knew there was only one thing to do. I studied the ancient texts. I trained under waterfalls. I fought hand-to-hand combat with some of the best fighters in the world just to improve my physical endurance so I'd be ready to compete at a high level. And all this training paid off. I was able to place 5th in the most recent Players' Cup, tied for 5th actually, with the same team. So if you want to say I'm 6th, that's fine. This team is 5th and 6th. It's just so good. I was able to place 5th in the most recent Players' Cup 3. Everything came to a close. Sadly, I was unable to qualify, but I still think I did pretty good, so I think my team's pretty cool, and you should check it out. Also, hey, if you're looking for a team to use in Players' Cup 4, I think I got you. This team's pretty good. It's pretty insane. So let's start with the prep. How did I come to the conclusion of this team? So I sat down with Raghav and I said, hey, buddy. Actually, Kimo was there as well. And I said, hey, buddy, what are we going to do? How can I win this Players' Cup? And Raghav said, well, first off, I'm winning, but what do you want to use? So I came to a conclusion, as along with Kimo. Kimo was pretty hard set on Sun from day one, but I was more open-minded. I said I want to use either Groudon, Zacian, or Kyogre. If the team doesn't have those, I'm out. I will not be playing the same team as you. So with that in mind, Raghav set out to building. I set out to building. My teams were very fruitless. There was constant discussion throughout the process about what we wanted to use, what was the intention. And I think ultimately Raghav decided on Sun, along with Kimo and I, just because Kimo was very adamant on Sun. Kimo really wanted to use Sun, and Raghav, Kimo, and I all like to use the same teams. So I think that's ultimately where we came to this conclusion of using Sun. And I think Sun was an amazing call. One thing I want to really focus on and note here is that I think Sun is better in open team sheets than normal, just because you know where all the Lumberries and safety goggles are. Sleep Powder is a very gross move, very strong, but I do think that you're able to specifically call out slots specifically, and also just Pokemon that might not have the anti-sleep berries or items. So I think Venusaur becomes 10 times better. Spore is really good, so is Sleep Powder. So it ends up creating this dynamic that you're able to put anything you want to sleep. It's just even better than Best of One. Like Best of One, sometimes they can catch you with a safety goggle Zapdos, but in open team sheets, I know what's coming. I know that that goggles is there, and I'll play accordingly. I think open team sheets in general do help the better players do better, just because we're able to do more with the information. So leading up to the tour, how I've got the impression that the team was built was that Raghav saw this team on ladder that looked pretty boring. It was a pretty simple team. It involved Charizard, Groudon, Venusaur, Umbreon, Incineroar, and Regieleki. And Raghav saw that and he said, hey, I want to add my own spice to it. I think this team is really good, but I want to make it my own. So Raghav added Porygon 2 and Grimmsnarl. This team originally did have Umbreon in the last slot. Incineroar was not there. And in testing, we were losing a lot to Calyrex Ice. So to solve that, we had to whip out that Incineroar. We wanted to be cool and quirky and use the really sick Umbreon, but this time around we kind of had to go with Incineroar. It just brought everything together. It's the perfect glue Pokemon. And I think the synergy of these Pokemon is just insane. The 3 best legends are easily Zacian, Kyogre, Groudon, in that order. Now you're probably saying, Colin, why do you think Groudon's good? It's kind of ass, it dies really easily, it doesn't do damage, and you have to hit your P-Blades. And I think Groudon is good because Venusaur and Incineroar are good, not because Groudon's good. I think Groudon is there for the ride. He's having fun. He's there for a good time, not a long time, but he does want to succeed, and he helps his friends. Groudon is all about the friendship here. Groudon doesn't want to risk hitting P-Blades, but if his partners kill everything before he can even move, that's a good thing. Groudon as a Pokemon is so mediocre. But with this team, and with specifically the combination of Venusaur and Incineroar, I think Groudon is incredible and easily contests Kyogre and Zacian as one of the best restricteds in the game. I do think when there's more prep coming into it, Groudon may see a fall in usage, but I do think Groudon is actually quite incredible just because Venusaur is so good. Now you're probably saying, but Colin, you could use Torkoal. He sets the sun too. And I'm saying, yeah, Torkoal, okay? Torkoal isn't as cool as Groudon, and also Groudon adds more typing to the game. We have Grass, Poison, Fire, Dark, Ground. That's freaking insane. We have way too many types there. The synergy is off the charts. They're protecting each other from their weaknesses. I just absolutely love it. No redundancy either yet. It's just such a great combination of typing, a great combination of synergy, and great offensive and defensive tools. I just love this core, and I did use a team recently in the r/VGC tour as well, leading up to this tour, where I used the same core. So I think those are a lot of the decision making and the thought processes leading into me choosing this team, and why we ultimately went with Sun. It was kind of a group effort, just a lot of discussions about Sun and the strength of Sun, and just trying to figure out what tools we thought were absolutely necessary. So now that that boring stuff is out of the way, let's get into the team, baby. So first things first, I'm going to talk about the order that they were added. So we'll start with Groudon because he's the legend. He was kind of added in the beginning, but the first Pokemon is Groudon. Whew, baby, I love Groudon. As I mentioned earlier, this guy is just good because of his friends, but oh my gosh, Groudon is strong. This set is, I think, the best Groudon set. I don't really like any other sets on Groudon. Okay, first things first, we got to talk about Wide Lens. I know a lot of people think Wide Lens is really cool, and they like hitting their moves, and they think Wide Lens is the greatest gift to mankind. I think Wide Lens sucks. And I think that if you like using Wide Lens, just take the item off. That's how useful it is, okay? Wide Lens is garbage. Don't use it. I think Citrus Berry is amazing. You can run Big Berry if you want, but Citrus Berry is so cool. Groudon is commonly 2-hit KO'd by a lot of things, but Citrus Berry just spices it up a little bit that those 2-hit KOs turn into 3-hit KOs. I think Citrus Berry is incredible. I can't even name situations just because he's basically never 2-hit KO'd because of this Citrus Berry. He's always living with 20 HP. He's always healing. I love Citrus Berry. I think it's so good. Wide Lens sucks, okay? So the ability is obviously Drought. We need to set the Sun. It's a Sun team, right? So the Groudon moveset is pretty simple. It's Rock Slide to hit the flying guys, Precipice Blades to hit the guys on the ground, Swords Dance to power up to hit which one you need, and then Protect because Groudon needs to protect itself. So the moveset, really explanatory. I love it. I think Fire Punch is kind of neat, but I think Rock Slide is just super worth, especially with Charizard being a very important Pokemon in this meta of the PC3. I think having Rock Slide pays dividends, and I never regretted using Rock Slide. Now for the EV spread. I think Groudon in general is better off being used as a bulky pivot instead of a sweeper. I think Groudon, obviously he is a sweeper at the end of the day. He's a legend. He's our restricted. But I think the bulk that Groudon has is super imperative, and I think being bulky is super important in a lot of the matchups. I find myself switching Groudon into Kyogre Water Spouts way more than I think I'd like to. This happens a lot. Weather Wars are really important, so having a special defense stat and investing in special defense is super important because Groudon is commonly going to switch in, whether it's to set Sun for Venusaur, Charizard, Incineroar, or just to take a hit for someone because Groudon, he's not the MVP here. He's protecting the carries, and I think this is a really fun way to play Restricteds. So for the EV spread, we ran enough HP and enough special defense to live a Phantasm 93% of the time, which is fine. Like a Life Orb Phantasm, I'll take that. Very rarely do we let him take a regular full powered Phantasm, but if this does happen, then he'll live it. As a baby form, by the way, this isn't like big Groudon. His attack stat does allow him to KO Zacian 100% of the time after Vine Lash and Wildfire. I think this is really important because Vine Lash and Wildfire are like literally the most important catalyst to the team. They allow everything to work, and without them this team wouldn't be good. I know there's been a lot of complaints later like, oh no, they're broken. Yeah, they're broken, but if they're broken, use it. If you want to win tournaments, my suggestion is to use the broken stuff. That's all I'm gonna say. So this abuses the Vine Lash damage. It allows us to get KOs onto Zacian when normally Groudon has no ability to. So that is really nice. It also does have a chance to KO Zacian regardless, but that's basically the spread. The speed was to outspeed Aurora Rayquaza's with Kyogre. I expected to see a lot of Aurora Rayquaza's team. For those who do not know the team, it's on the screen. That team is mad annoying, so you have to have a positive matchup. And when discussing the speed stats when running the sets against this team, we decided that this speed was necessary, and being faster than Kyogre was important, so we went with that. Overall, Groudon is, he's so good. I really do think he's the 3rd best legend, and I had such a blast using one of my old boys. I named him Caesar after my famous Groudon that hit all the P-Blades I desired in Atlantic City, and Caesar came through once again. We didn't miss a P-Blades. We hit all the P-Blades we need to. I don't know. Stay mad, Widelands gang. Stay mad. So Groudon, one of the MVPs of the team. I love Groudon so much. He's just such a dorky mon. Like he's not the carry, he's not the Kyogre or the Zacian. He's just there for the ride and helping out his teammates, and I love Groudon. So next up, I think we have to talk about Charizard. I love Charizard, and I love this set specifically. So about a year ago, Raghav gave me a team to enter a tour with that featured Assault Vest Charizard with Ancient Power. At the time, Charizard was really hype and we needed a Sun matchup, and he came up with this idea that was, you know, taken from one of his MPA players on his team, Jamie Boyd. So Jamie Boyd was the original mastermind of Assault Vest Charizard, and Raghav took the idea from him, and it's been in his head for a year. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Assault Vest Charizard on teams. Like, this is one of Raghav's favorite sets, I swear. Like, I keep seeing this pop up on his teams, and it fit amazingly here. So the idea of this Charizard is to function in tandem with Scary Face Grimmsnarl specifically, so that it lives forever with the screens and moves before Venusaur in the sun due to Scary Face. So Charizard is really, really important in our sun matchup. It's basically, you can lead it every single time, and Charizard plays a pivotal role there. So the item is Assault Vest, because Assault Vest is really important in the mirror, just so you're taking Venusaur Charizard's hits better. So Assault Vest is there, great item. It's also just a really, really good item. I think the 3 most broken items in the game are Weakness Policy, Assault Vest, and Life Orb. And if you're not putting one of them on your primary maxes, you're probably trolling and you might be losing games because of this. Assault Vest adds a ton of bulk, especially when you multiply your HP. The value of Assault Vest is just astronomical, so Assault Vest is very good. For the ability, obviously Solar Power, because we want to abuse the sun damage. The moveset is Heat Wave, Air Slash, Solar Beam, and Ancient Power. So Solar Beam wasn't actually the intended move. In the rental code included with the team, I'm going to be putting Scorching Sands because that was the intention. When I was signing up the day before the tour, I was just typing in, copying my stats down, and when I put Charizard in, I typed in Solar Beam because I'm like, oh, I've been playing Pokemon for 10 years. Charizard always runs Solar Beam, Solar Beam, Solar Beam, right? Solar Beam was on the mind. Charizard doesn't run Solar Beam anymore. Scorching Sands is way better. I accidentally put Solar Beam, and I was so mad at myself. So I had to run Solar Beam in the tour. It was not fun. Being able to Oko Incin in the sun is so nice, and not being able to have that option made some of my matchups difficult. I will be releasing all of my matches so you can see the team in action. Gonna do a little rundown, and I'll mention when Solar Beam comes up, and Solar Beam was not very helpful at all. It was supposed to be Scorching Sands. It made me have to play better than I was even playing, which, that was a feat. So Solar Beam is supposed to be Scorching Sands, but again, I messed up the team sheet, and there's nothing I could do. I emailed them and they said, sorry buddy, you can't use that one. So I had to use Solar Beam Charizard, and ultimately did hurt a lot in the final round, which was unfortunate, but that was my own fault. I love team sheets. So Heat Wave is obvious, big fire move, spread fire move. Heat Wave's just probably one of the best moves in the game. Air Slash, I went for Air Slash, obviously. Like, Hurricane is cool, but a lot of the time Charizard wouldn't max. So, like, either Venusaur or Groudon could max. So it was important that Air Slash was there for consistency's sake. Solar Beam. And then Ancient Power. Ancient Power is the cool spice of the team. This is the idea that Jamie Boyd had a year ago that Raghav used. And it's just basically to give yourself a very positive matchup into enemy Charizards. I basically thought if I played against Sun teams that weren't the 6-mon mirror, I would have a positive matchup and I should just win every single time because of this Charizard alone. I think it is so good. So the main intention of this Charizard is to take a +2 max Hailstorm from Calyrex Ice, because Calyrex Ice was such an issue that we catered this Charizard for the matchup. So if I max Charizard, I can take a max Hailstorm from a +2 Calyrex Ice behind Reflect or with an Intimidate. I would always be able to live the Hailstorm, which was astronomically important in that matchup, and it made me very confident because I had Intimidate, I had Reflect, and most of the time Calyrex was getting procced by Mimikyu, so being able to account for the weakness policy boost was really important, and we were able to do that with this Charizard spread. It's really nice. It also has a really good chance of living Behemoth Blade plus Airstream with Reflect Up. The math is hard. Raghav just told me it lives it a lot of the time. I don't have an official calc to live you, but it's still nice. It also has a really good chance of KOing Charizard if they don't run a ton of special defense, which is really nice. It also has a really good chance of one-shotting Groudon in the sun if they don't run much bulk, which is, mainly what the special attack there is for. The spread is pretty simple. Again, the main goal is just to live that big hit from Calyrex Ice and then do big damage back with Wildfire. Charizard was one of the best Pokemon throughout the run. I loved using Charizard. In practice, I was infamous for bringing Charizard versus Kyogre teams, and I never got to do it in the tournament, but I was ready. I had game plans and lines in my head of how I was going to make it work, and I would just bring the 4 Pokemon of Groudon, Charizard, Grimmsnarl, and Venusaur all the time, and that's definitely the core of the team in my opinion, and the 4 I love using the most. It's so much fun to just sun mode someone. I love it so much, and Charizard's clutch. I really did enjoy using Charizard, and he was probably my favorite Pokemon on the team. So, with every Sun team, Venusaur is a must, and I think this Venusaur is really unique to the team specifically. So for the item choice, we went with Weakness Policy. Weakness Policy Venusaur without a self-proc in an open team sheet format sounds like one of the dumbest ideas you could come up with, but I think it worked perfectly throughout the run. So in practice, obviously a lot of opponents proc the Weakness Policy, and that was great, and we would hit them, KO them back, do big damage. It was a really fun way to play a Venusaur. But I think Weakness Policy in an open team sheet format on a Pokemon like this creates situations that are just beneficial for us. So let's say you led Kyogre plus Dragapult into my Venusaur. You're going to second guess yourself on whether you're even going to airstream me in the first place due to the fear of the Weakness Policy proc. It's really nice, and it created a lot of situations where I was able to just freely Sleep Powder or sometimes just attack without taking damage, and it made Venusaur basically even more unkillable. Some people were so afraid of the Weakness Policy that it would get ignored for almost all 3 turns of max, and I would just come out of max full HP ready to go. I think it also works completely in tandem with the screen support that Grimmsnarl provides. One of the classic leads of the team is Grimmsnarl Venusaur. It's really even better in best of 1 just because they don't know your Weakness Policy. But even in best of 3, it was really scary, and the open team sheets, they knew the Weakness Policy was there, but it was still difficult for them to deal with such an obnoxious Pokemon. Because obviously I could just Sleep Powder, or I could max. It created a lot of fun mind games that were almost always favoring me. So Weakness Policy, while it may seem a little weird, I think it's like one of the most best items in the game, so it felt necessary to include on the team regardless. And I think with Grimmsnarl, it was just pure genius. So the ability is Chlorophyll, gotta go fast, that's really it. For the moveset, we went with Sleep Powder, Leaf Storm, Weather Ball, Earth Power. Pretty standard stuff outside of the lack of Sludge Bomb. Usually that's over the Earth Power or the Weather Ball slot, but I thought both were necessary, so did Rogov. It's just such an important, nice thing to have. Like, having both is really important, being able to hit Ferrothorn and Kartana, Celesteela, all those Pokemon with the Fire move, even Zacian. It's really important with Weather Ball. And then, Leaf Storm is just obviously our stab move. Earth Power, those max Quake boosts are nice, and also just hitting Incineroar is so important, because normally Sludge Bomb would go there, but hitting Incineroar is way more important than any poison coverage could ever be. And then Sleep Powder, the best move in the game. This is what makes Sun. And if you're not using Sleep Powder Venusaur, I think you're kind of trolling. I don't know, dude. Use Sleep Powder. It's so good. The EV spread is really simple. It aims to live max Airstream from Thundurus most of the time in Reflect, which is all you can really ask for. That's AV Thundurus, by the way. And then the rest is put into Speed and Special Defense. So overall, Venusaur is like the best Pokemon in the game. This Pokemon is so broken, and the synergy with all of the Pokemon on this team, including Porygon, was just amazing. Venusaur was... It's probably the MVP. It was probably better than Grimmsnarl. I don't know. Venusaur is just so good. It was perfect for this team. I think it's one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. Oh man, Venusaur. So after Venusaur, we gotta talk about the king of the team, Grimmsnarl. I think Grimmsnarl was secretly what made this team stand out and what makes it different from Sun teams that you've seen before. I think Grimmsnarl helps hard carry the team and was brought in like 80% of the matchups. So what Grimmsnarl is able to do is he's able to spam, light screen, and reflect. He's just a screen bot, and I think that's what makes him so good. The item is Light Clay, obviously. We gotta have those 8 turns of screens, which a lot of the time is basically all you need. 8 turns of a battle is probably almost the whole battle. Prankster allows me to set those screens with priority and also Scary Face. It's why Grimmsnarl is good. The moveset is very simple. Spirit Break, because that's his best move. It's so good. I think Spirit Break is a large part of why Grimmsnarl feels so broken, is that his one attacking move is also insane utility and big damage. Spirit Break is awesome. Reflect and Light Screen, I want my screens, and then Scary Face, again to help with Sun matchup, and it's just a really cool form of speed control. Think Thundurus in 2013. This is like Thunderwave, but now it's on a Grimmsnarl guy who sends screens. Grimmsnarl is the new Thundurus, and I love this. I loved using this Pokemon. I thought Grimmsnarl was the second best Pokemon in the game since Series 8 started. I used it on my first Dialga team. Link in the description if you want to check that baby out. And I think Grimmsnarl hasn't stopped. It hasn't slowed down. It's still one of the best Pokemon in the game, and I adore Grimmsnarl with all my heart. Also, the best Pokemon in the game, if you're wondering, is Incineroar. We'll talk about that later. As far as EV spread, this thing was supposed to take 2 Airstreams from Thundurus behind Reflect, and that's basically all it needed to do. Grimmsnarl was the MVP of the tournament. Like, I'm probably going to say everybody was the MVP, but Grimmsnarl just helped carry me through so many games. A lot of players couldn't deal with the screen pressure or break through Grimmsnarl, and I just had a ton of fun using Grimmsnarl, and I love this Pokemon. It feels like Thundurus, but better. It's so awesome. Grimmsnarl supports every single Pokemon, like, equally. Like, screens help everybody, and Scary Face synergizes with every Pokemon except for Porygon. It's such a good move, and I really enjoyed Scary Face. You could run Thunder Wave if you want to hit, like, Dragapult, but I thought Scary Face was way more important to deal with stuff like Alecki, so that was why Scary Face was chosen. Let's talk about P2 and why P2's on this team. I think Porygon is really, really important. Porygon acts as another speed control answer. It gives us Trick Room, but more importantly, it also helps in Kyogre matchups. It's really important to have stuff that can switch into Kyogre, even in the sun, because Kyogre's doing big damage, and Porygon accomplishes that. I think Porygon helps so much versus Rain. It just helps in those kind of matchups. I think that's where I was bringing it, more or less. But it also gave an option in a best of 3 to just try and Trick Room someone if you felt like it. You could lead Incin Porygon, you could lead Grimmsnarl Porygon, and of course Porygon Venusaur. That's always really scary as well. Porygon just gave the team a lot of adjustments in best of 3s and helped against Rain. There's not much else I can really say about this thing. It's just really good. Porygon was perfect here. The other Trick Room setter is not as good. But yeah, so the item of course is Eviolite. You gotta be bulky, baby. Defensive choice, it makes Porygon unkillable. Download for the ability. Since Foul Play wasn't opted into, Trace is not a great option. And also, recently when I played against Paul Ruiz in the top 16 of the r/VGC tour, I actually traced Drizzle from Kyogre. So I didn't want to run into that issue again, so Download was the ability of choice here. I think it is really good, and I just didn't want to trace that. Also, Ice Beam was really important over Foul Play. So the moveset is Ice Beam, Eerie Impulse, Recover, Trick Room. Ice Beam is mainly to hit Lando. Lando can be kind of obnoxious for the team, but Landorus is kind of a bad Pokemon, so that's okay. Ice Beam does help versus Lando, and it does help versus Thundurus and stuff of that nature. Ice Beam is just an all-around really solid move. Gives you the most offensive coverage that you can ask for. Ice is just a great type. Like, if you ever are asking, like, why does Porygon have Ice Beam over something like Tri-Attack, it's just amazing typing, and you're just hitting everything so hard with a download boost. Eerie Impulse is the most broken move ever. I think this move is actually insane. It's borderline busted. This move is crazy. Eerie Impulse helped carry Porygon, and it secured a spot on the team. It helps a lot versus Kyogre. This is really important in the Kyogre matchup. And it also just helps against any special attacker. It makes Groudon and Venusaur just unkillable when you start Eerie Impulsing the threat to them. Recover, you want to live forever. Trick Room, it's the best move in the game. Gotta have that Trick Room. And that's really it. The spread itself is just designed to take 2 Sacred Swords from Zacian, rather important calc, and then that's about it. It's just very bulky. It wants to take Zacian's hits, and the rest is put in special defense. No complaints on P2. It's always a great Pokemon, and I think it just really... I think when you're using this team on ladder, you're not going to bring it that much, but like in a best of 3, it gives you so many more options, and that's, I think, where the real weight is pulled. Just because normally you're like, okay, I'm going to just Grimmsnarl this guy, it's fine. But in a best of 3, you're like, all right, let's spice it up. Let's do something a little different to throw my opponent off guard. And P2 can do just that. It's also just a crazy good Pokemon. And good versus Kyogre. So I just have nothing else to say. It's just such a good Pokemon. And I really enjoyed using Porygon. So let's talk about Incineroar. Incineroar is so good, and it was one of the best Pokemon in the game, but this slot used to be an Umbreon. And Umbreon was really cool and really fun to use. Yawn Pressure was really fun, but ultimately Calyrex Ice needed priority, and Intimidate is the best ability in the game, and Raghav and I can't sleep at night if our teams don't have Intimidate. So the Incineroar is pretty simple. Safety Goggles to help the Sun matchup even more. Umbreon originally had Safety Goggles, so Incin taking the Safety Goggles from the little dog cat thing is important. And then the ability Intimidate. Come on, I don't need to even talk about this guy. He's so good. You guys know the Incin. So Fake Out, Flare Blitz, Parting Shot, Darkest Lariat. Fake Out to flinch, Flare Blitz for fire move, Parting Shot because Parting Shot's broken, Darkest Lariat because we actually wanted to hit Calyrex Shadow Rider. Like, that was important because Grimmsnarl wasn't carrying the dark move, so Incin carried it. It was really nice against Shadow Rider if we had to play them. Okay, so truth be told, this EV spread is kind of wild. So the idea of this Incin is kind of genius. Calyrex and Zacian are the two Pokemon that Incin is very positive against. But one thing that's kind of annoying is Incin's slower than them. But Raghav thought, what if we changed that? So Raghav found that if we ran max speed Incineroar, we would be able to outspeed Zacian and Calyrex Shadow Rider after Scary Face. So Incin is max speed. It was also a discussion of just like how fast should Incin go. Incins have been moderately increasing their speeds every single time the tournament happens. I believe Aura Rayquaza was hitting around 156 or something EVs. So like, this was just taken to the next level. We said max speed, baby. We're going to go fast. And we went fast. Maybe a little too fast, but oh my gosh, this was the greatest spread of all time. Max speed Incineroar. It basically is just max speed, and that's really all you need to know. The rest was put in a bulk. Defense boosting nature to help with Zacian, but this guy is speedy. And I love Incineroar for that. It didn't come up often during the tournament, but in practice, max speed Incineroar was really nice. You're always moving first, and you know that. There's no question of speed ties or any of that stuff. In open team sheets, it's really hard to surprise your opponents, but I genuinely think that all three of us were able to surprise our opponents with max speed Incineroar. I outsped Zacian as it went for sub, and then it had 1 HP left, and I actually burned that turn, so the Zacian fainted. Raghav outsped a Rillaboom and KO'd with Flare Blitz before it could even move. It's just such a nice feature, and I think we caught a lot of opponents off guard. I think people are like, open team sheets take away from creativity. It's really hard, but I think you can get creative with spreads, and I think our Incineroar did that, and I couldn't be more proud of Raghav for coming up with this genius Incineroar. I loved every second of using it, and I really am afraid to release this upon the world because I really, really don't want to see max speed Incineroar on ladder, but I know I'm going to. Oh my god, what have I done? It's so fun to use. It's so funny to see reactions when your Incin outspeeds a Zacian. It's ridiculous. It was also makes the team really consistent. Just dealing with Zacian and dealing with Shadow Rider. Like, it's a guaranteed outspeed, and that's really nice to have. Incineroar, what a banger of a mon. That's all I really got to say. So that's the team as a whole. Those are all the spreads and moves and all the EVs. And, you know, I hope you learned something from it. I think this team, while very standard, is very creative in its own way with EV spreads and item choices. And it just helped us perform during the tournament. I think one thing to note about this team is that it hardcore abuses Vinelash and Wildfire. I'm basically only maxing those two Pokemon. Groudon is kind of a niche max, but outside of that, you're maxing those two Pokemon. Also, you do max Incin usually against the Shadow Riders. Just keep that in mind. But overall, those two Pokemon are the main way that this team is dealing damage and the main way that you're winning games. Wildfire and Vinelash are very, very broken, very strong moves, so why not use them? I always play to win, so I use the best stuff in the game. I'm sorry if you don't like that. That's how I play, and I enjoy winning, so they go hand in hand. Vinelash is very good, so is Wildfire. They're just very, very strong moves, and they have this really anti-risk thing about them where sometimes just Vinelashing a double resisted Mon is worth it just because the effects are so broken. Overall, this team was such a blast to play. It had everything I love. It had Trick Room. It had a secondary form of speed control. It had Incineroar. I had such a fun time playing this team, and I really suggest you to try it out. If you're looking for a team to qualify for PC4, I think you got it right here, baby. This team is so good, and I had such a fun time using it. If you want to see more of a breakdown of the team, I also helped Audie record a segment on his own stream that breaks down the same team, but way more in depth. So if you want more information, head over there. It's just more in-depth description of everything that's going on here. Audie's channel is great. You should go check it out. But it also is the same team, so you know you can learn more there if you really enjoyed this team. And I definitely suggest you to go check it out because the team is so sick. I had such a blast playing this team, and I had such a fun time showing it off. I can't wait to post the videos of all my matches. I hope you guys stick around and check those out. You know, if you subscribe, they'll pop up on your feed. You can check them out. Because I think a lot of the team in action is just glorious, beautiful Pokemon that this team can perform. I think this team is just really fair and just wants to play Pokemon against you while using some of the best tools in the game, such as a Weakness Policy, Assault Vest, Incineroar, and Sun. And I think this team is just so fun. And I really want you to use it. Like, I would love to play this team on ladder. I think it's so cool. And I think Raghav did a really good job. And I'm really proud of how I played and just how the tournament went. I think 5th, while sad that I was not able to qualify for the global finals, is still an accomplishment. And I want to do better next time, but I am a little bit content with this one. I wanted to prove myself, especially after that heartbreaking 0-2 performance, and I think I did that. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the team. It's so fun to use. Please go check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, it's on that screen. Use that bad boy out. I hope you guys have an amazing and wonderful day. I'll see you guys later.